Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we talk freight, sales, tech, the market, and everything in between. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. Let's get it. Hello and welcome to the Journey Podcast. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. And today I'm joined by the legendary Justin Turner.
Appreciate that, man. How you doing today?
Excellent, my friend. You know, today is one of my favorite episodes, man. We do this episode annually, the Black History Month episode. And, you know, it's really cool because this time last year, you and I just started really working together in this business. So you joined as managing partner and my business partner in this venture. And, you know, I think there's some unique dynamics that, just create complexities in the space that we're in. And part of it has to do with, you know, being a man of color in the space. And, you know, there's not necessarily a whole lot of people that look like us in high ranking executive roles in the space that we play. And so it's unique. I'll have follow-up questions and things that we'll dive into. But from personal experience, I walk into a lot of rooms where I am the one Black executive in the space. And so we got to talk about it a little bit. I think it's super important.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good topic. You know, Black History Month means a lot to me in general, but like, man, I come from Alabama, man, you know, so I grew up kind of in the heart of some interesting, you know, racial dynamics. I will say though, on a positive note, like, man, I had some of the best times growing up with people from all backgrounds and societies. I kind of often think about my grandparents, man, and, you know, oftentimes it can feel like the civil rights movement was like, you know, 200 years ago. You can kind of feel like it was around the era of the Constitution and things like that, because you kind of learn about it in history books right behind all these major events and George Washington and things like that, 1776. But my mother was born in 1961. You know, the civil rights movement, she was alive for it. My grandparents were adults during the civil rights movement, are some of the first people in segregated schools in the South. Stepfather, who I contribute, you know, to be a massive part of my life, was a sharecropper in the South that, you know, lived on land and picked cotton and things like that. And I'm the birth of all of those people. And I've gotten a chance to do the things I've got a chance to do. And oftentimes just think about how far we've come in such a shorter period of time. But to your point, you know, we still have to manage and, operate in some dynamics that don't really have a lot of people that look like us. And we got to try to navigate those waters and, you know, kind of blend in sometimes. So I'm thankful for progress. I'm hoping to see more people that look like us join our industry too. I'm going to have great careers like we've been fortunate to have also.
I think that's great perspective. I grew up in Chicago. My granddad on my dad's side is from St. Louis, and my granddad and my grandmother on my mom's side are from Kentucky. So a little bit more south. They both ended up on both sides in Chicago. Both my grandparents' sides grew up in Chicago. So very different dynamic there in terms of some of the challenges in the 60s and 70s, just based on where our parents and grandparents grew up and where they lived. But, you know, to me, I think a lot of times about how crazy life is for me to be in this situation, to sit down and talk to you about this business that we're building and the impact that we're having, and the just ripple effects of like really bold people before us essentially saying, I'm going to step up and say that I feel this is not fair and equitable for people, you know, and I want to put my foot down and be a representative and stand for more than just myself. Like, I wouldn't be here otherwise. A bunch of like really courageous people hadn't stood the ground. And so to me, it's just such a unique conversation for us and a time for us to be able to be very good stewards of opportunity, man. Like, that's probably the biggest word for me when I think about what Black History Month means, and then what it means for me to carry a legacy for people that came before me. Brother, I'm sitting on a lot of opportunity, right? And if I don't make the most of it and go out there and show other kids and it's not honestly not just people of color. It's people that you can go and do things and maybe achieve at a clip that seemed freaking impossible, like really, really tough and all these challenges in front of you. The name of the game is opportunity to me. I think about it sometimes, but I can't believe I'm sitting in the situation I'm in, all the stuff that had to happen and all the opportunity in front of me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm a member of an organization called Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which was one of the first Black fraternities in general, and one of the first Greek organizations, predominantly constructed for Black people to have a source of community and to be able to be a shelter inside of some really unique dynamics back then. One of the things that I take the most pride in is some of the philanthropy that we do, particularly things like Big Brother, Big Sister. We do a ton in the local communities. And I still think about that work, and I think that the representation is some of the most important parts of it, is to see people that look like you doing things that you hope to strive to be. Oftentimes, when you think about our culture, people think entertainment, they think sports, they think dribbling basketballs and throwing footballs and rapping and singing and things like that. But it's such a small, minute share of the excellence that comes from our culture. There are some incredible entrepreneurs and thought leaders and creatives in technology and engineering, medicine, you name it. And ultimately, the industry that we're passionate about, even in transportation, even one of the largest companies in our space, C.H. Robinson, CEO. So it just shows you that we have made some extraordinary advances throughout the years. And those are some of the things that I get excited about, and it makes me proud. I also think, too, and you push me all the time. I don't know. People see me maybe post a little bit more than I used to. It makes me uncomfortable for the audience out there. Just a heads up. He forces me to do this because it's the best thing for me to get comfortable doing also. But it also continues to double down on the representation. I get so many direct messages from people, account executives, salespeople, VPs of sales. It doesn't matter what the role is, but people from the industry being like, hey, man, we never met each other before, but man, shout out to you. I see some of the things you've done in your career. Man, like, shout out to you, dog. There's just not a lot of people that have had the fortune to have that opportunity, and I'm grateful for it all.
The thing that I feel is incredibly important based on what you just said there is representation and having people that look like you in positions that you would like to have. So I'm going to attack something that people are probably uncomfortable to attack. And, you think about,
here we go,
equity and, hey, everyone should have a seat at the table or get an opportunity to try their hand at something or have opportunities to be fair. Absolutely. Do I believe that, right? If you are capable and you have the characteristics and the skill sets, you should get a shot. Put your hand or your hat in the ring to go and take on those opportunities, right? Now, right now, you look at yourself as an executive and someone that's achieved in the space, battled against a lot of adversity, come up through the ranks. You look at a younger version of yourself when you looked up. There weren't a lot of Justin Turners for you to look at 22 that were the chief revenue officer of a venture-backed organization with $1 billion valuation, right? Not a lot of versions of you that you looked at. A couple, right? May have been in other industries, but not a lot. Man, you owe it to yourself at a younger version to continue to put yourself out there so that they are comfortable with attacking their opportunities at that clip, because it's really hard to go be something that you've never seen. You got to have so much internal to be convinced that you are capable to go do something that you don't have a roadmap to see. Do you know how freaking hard that is? You know how hard you had to work to convince yourself that you were capable? When you look up, you're like, man, I don't see nobody that looks like me that maybe came from the background. Does not mean that they don't exist. They may not exist in the same industry, right? Very challenging space to battle in. And you probably looked up at 22 like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be in that C-suite, right? But you worked really hard to get there. And so my challenge to you, this is just like, as business partners and very, 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 very good friends, like every version of you up to this point needs that, because they're looking at their opportunity today as an account executive. And they're like, I could be Justin Turner one day if they keep seeing Justin Turner. Right? Yeah. I could be that kid at some point in my career, but golly, is it hard? And brings back to representation, right? It's hard to go be something that you've never seen.
Yeah. No, man, it's so true, man. Like, I think about my journey like that. And, I had no clue what I wanted to do after college. I was in the music industry and had a record deal, lost a record deal, was kind of like a starving artist. playing bars and stuff in Atlanta, and took this job as a track and trace rep at Coyote late 2000. I had no idea what logistics was or what any of it meant. I can imagine that trucking was important, but, fresh out of college, I had no clue. And, when I got to the GX, the Green Exchange, for those that are unfamiliar with old Coyote lingo, that was our headquarters back in the day. And I walked in there and I was like, man, I might be the only black person in here. And I remember I saw, who is it? I think I saw Marquise Hubbard, and I remember meeting Adrian Dodds. I met you. I met Brandon Jackson.
I wasn't even there yet.
Yeah, you came later. That's actually a good point. Yeah, because you knew Adrian.
Yeah,
that's right.
I wasn't even there. I ended up there because of Adrian.
Yeah. And I just remember, like, every now and then, Courtney Allen, rest in peace, Courtney. I remember every now and then we'd have a little group that would just kind of get together. And I feel like everybody would kind of look at us kind of a little weird because there was like 9 of us like talking in this in the circle. Yes. But it was weird that there could be like 2,000 people in a place. There was 9 of us in a place, and everybody would kind of look at us. And shout out to Jeff Silver. I remember Jeff would always kind of walk in the huddle too with us and just kind of talk to us. And it just made me feel so good to feel even included. We kind of create our own little culture inside of it all. But to your point, man, I didn't see anybody, and when I started to be able, because I call it fortune, to be able to go to conferences, that stuff costs money. You have to be able to prove that you can be, valuable enough to go on the road because they got to spend money for you to go there. When I started to go to conferences, I would be in the conferences and I was like, this is not a Coyote thing. You might go to a conference and look around and there may be 5,000 people in the conference. And I still may see 9 people in there that look like me. And I'm like, and we all kind of like dap each other up and do the little, you know what I'm saying? Where you from? Like it's
every time.
It's a huge
We're getting
space.
ready to go to Manifest. There's going to be, I don't know, probably 5,000 or 6,000 people at Manifest. 5% of the people there will be people of color. Maybe 10%.
Maybe.
But like for real. And then I do the same thing. The head nod. We're chopping it up at the water cooler every time. Every single time.
I think that's what makes Black culture cool, though, man. We're resilient. We make the most out of every opportunity. Yeah. We're taught very early on, at least for me. I don't want to project on anyone else, but I was taught very early on. I got to be 10 times better than everybody else. Like, I need to look the part. I need to be prepared. I can't go in and wing it all the time. I'm probably not going to have a family member or a friend or a cousin or somebody from my fraternity or from my class that I know there. I'm alone out here. Like, I need to go and figure it out.
Do you know how hard it was for me to show up to my interview at Coyote not in a suit and tie?
I know.
It felt weird. Like, I got to be ready. I was like, I got to be ready, right? And I wore a button down and a nice pair of slacks. It wasn't too, I was like, man, I got to be prepared, right? Like, I got to show up.
Yeah.
Got to be like ready to go.
Which is right. That was the right thing to do. There was a, business casual culture. But to your point, that's how we were conditioned, suit and tie, show up early, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all the right things too. Those are incredible behaviors for us to teach our children and whatnot. But yeah, it was a little odd at first because, freight industry is kind of a casual culture. And in my head, I'm like, I thought I had to have the suit and tie on. So
yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to maybe younger ages and just think about examples or things that you found to be motivating or exciting. I know for me, it was my parents. I've always had an incredible relationship with them and looked at them as the most hardworking, respectable people that were really good examples of what I wanted to achieve, or at least how I wanted to represent myself in society, even if I wanted to go pursue something different than they were doing. Anything when you were a kid that you gravitated towards that kind of got you en route with what you're doing today?
Man, I grew up around some phenomenal people, man. My mother is originally from Kokomo, Indiana. So my grandparents were both in the automotive industry. If you know anything about Kokomo, Kokomo is like a small Detroit, with General Motors and Chrysler being the predominant drivers of the economy. So they both worked for the automotive industry. So I would see these people get up in the morning. It's pitch black. It's kind of like our Chicago experience. It may be 5 o'clock in the morning. You got to grab your lunch pail. It's 1 degree outside. And they just went to work every day in really rough conditions, left the South and really made something great out of themselves. I wanted to be just like them. My other grandparents on my father's side were more academic. They were my grandmother was an educator. She was one of the first Black teachers in the state of Alabama. And my grandfather was one of the first kind of senior managers in human resources for IBM. This was in the 60s and 70s. and they both had master's degrees. So I saw their like educational background, and that was like very, very inspirational to me because they always preach like you got to go to school. Even though I was a creative and I wanted to be an artist and a performing artist, they were always like, man, you got to get your education because once again, we got to be 10 times better because there's a chance that you may jump out there in that water and may not have a lot of resources around you. So you got to make sure you know how to move and that you have the education to be who you want to be one day. So the combination of their academic background and my maternal grandparents' kind of hardworking background, the combination of those things, man, was just so inspirational to me. And of course, my mother was a single mom and worked multiple jobs. She ended up getting her master's degree later on in life. And
let's go.
Yeah, man, and having a great career in the Army, ironically in logistics. And probably if it wasn't for her going into logistics, there's probably no chance in hell that I am where I am today. She was like, this freight thing I'm learning in school, and I got this job for the government now. I feel like you should think about that freight job that they were talking about in Atlanta. And man, here we are. What about you?
I love that, man. Interesting. I was having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, just thinking about all the things that had to happen for me to be sitting here in Chicago, living such an amazing life and just attacking stuff that really matters to me. And both sides of my mom's parents and my dad's parents and my grandparents, both sides, very similar, super hardworking. Both my granddads were in the military, and both of my grandparents on my grandma and on my mom's side and grandma on my dad's side, both worked full time, like worked their tail off to be able to provide for their family and whatnot. But this is where the fork in the road, it's a little bit different. So my mom's side, super academic, right? Grew up west side of Chicago. For anyone that's familiar with west side of Chicago, she grew up near the Farrar Pan Candy Factory. It's called K-Town, and it is the hood. It is a rough neighborhood, but it was not nearly as rough when my mom was coming up. It's a more challenging neighborhood. My dad grew up in the Austin neighborhood, which is still a challenging neighborhood. Today, it's rough. So there's a fork in the road. My mom went to private school.
Yep.
My dad went to public school. My dad went to Austin High School. A little bit more rough there. My mom, private girls' school, right? But the reason is my grandparents on my mom's side, they were like, we're not sending you to the public school here. We're going to send you to the private school. And that trickle-down effect, right? Just to be unbelievably transparent. My dad had my sister when he was 18 years old, right? There was like a lot more life happening for a young 18-year-old growing up on the west side of Chicago, going to public school, getting into stuff that, couple years too soon, right? Yeah. Life is now real. You got a daughter at 18. By the way, I have an incredible amount of respect for my dad because he's been working his entire life.
Yeah.
Provided an amazing life for me and my brother and our entire family. But that man been working forever, right? So life started way sooner for him than maybe he wanted, right? My mom, private school, my grandma was not about any of the riffraff, right? So that was probably unlikely to happen on my mom's side of the family. Went to private school, and then my mom and dad get together. That's for the story. They settle in Maywood, west side of Chicago a little bit. Neighborhood is decent, but it's not great. Other schools are a little rough. I went to private school. You want to know why I went to private school? Because that's where my mom went to school. And there was zero chance my mom, because my grandma was around for a very long time, there was zero chance that my mom was going to look her mom in the eye and go, you put me through private school, and me and Mike, my dad, we're not going to figure out how to take care of our two young boys, right? Growing up on the west side of Chicago, make sure that they get the best opportunity to go and succeed at a higher clip. Yeah. There's so much more to that story, but like, shout out to my grandma, right? Because she was not playing any games, literally. And I still remember, like, I know she was probably contributing to make sure that like me and my brother were taken care of. And like, this is what I did for my baby. So like, make sure I take care of my grandbabies. But like, there's no chance I end up at Illinois Wesleyan and doing all these things if my grandma and granddad did not set that standard for my mom back in the 60s. Like, there's just no way.
Man, that's so cool. And speaking of like that standard and things like that, I think sometimes I feel like in a corporate or professional setting, that game, that level of like insight on here's how to handle scenarios, here's how to think about this, here's how to be financially literate, how to make the right choices. There is a game to play in corporate America. Like, make no mistake about it. And if people don't believe that, you're fooling yourself.
If you don't realize you're in the game, you're getting played.
Yeah, or you're maybe just not in the game at all. But there is a game that's being played. And I mean that in the healthiest way possible. That's just the reality of it. And when I see some of my counterparts that are not from our background, they seem to have a lot of insight that I don't think I was fortunate to get. They may have a father or a mother or an uncle or a brother or a cousin that's an executive that has built a company before or that has just seen really great success before. They owned real estate earlier in their life than I did. They've been in leadership before, like all these things. And I kind of felt like, bro, I was kind of learning it on the fly, and I think about
Absolutely.
some of I don't really call them biggest mistakes in my career, but most of my learning experiences were very expensive learning experiences, because I didn't have someone that had my career path before. I have a few family members that are really successful. So we all have some success around us in our families. But like in general, I'm one of the first people in my family to see some of the things I've seen in my life. So my children are going to have a different experience.
Absolutely.
They for damn sure, if God willing, gives me longevity and I can be around when they're our age, I'm going to be right there. But something, hey, think about this differently.
Right.
I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would take that opportunity or that meeting that you're talking about that's coming up on Monday that you're nervous about with their investors. Make sure you know these things to say when you go in there, because this is what matters. They care about these outcomes. And so much of that stuff for me, and I maybe speak for a lot of our community, we have to just learn that through trial and error. And the stakes are high, and we don't really even know how high the stakes are sometimes because no one's ever done it before in our family.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
It's different. It's different.
It's different. So I take this platform seriously. I take my voice seriously. The representation that you talked about earlier, I take that seriously because someone's got to be able to be a coach and a mentor and advisor to the next generation. Because oftentimes for us, we didn't have that. And that's part of being Black in this country. But we've had an incredible opportunity to change that for our lineage and for the people around us. And that's what makes me the most excited about where we're going.
Again, back to representation and opportunity. I think there have been so many amazing things that have happened throughout 35 years of my life that if I'm not willing to step up and make the most of the opportunity in front of me, I don't deserve it. My parents didn't sacrifice what they sacrificed for years to send me to the best schools, to give me the best opportunities for me to just ho-hum and kind of coast through. Brother, immediately not. There's too much to go get. And as we talked about before, there's so many people that look up to you that you might not even know you're inspiring. They may never send you a message. They may never comment on something, but you post something and they take a look at your LinkedIn, like, oh man, that Justin guy's pretty cool, right? All right, I'm going to keep doing what I got to do because, if I do my thing well enough, maybe I'll get to that point, right? Maybe I'll end up being the VP. Maybe I'll end up being the person raising the money. And it's really, really hard to do that if you don't see somebody ahead of you paying it forward and kind of, paving the way to go and do those things.
So I'm going to throw you a question. What would you like to see the industry do about the diversity challenges that we have in it? Is there anything that you think about sometimes? It's like, hey, man, I know there's a lot of talented people out there that look like us. And when I see these photos all over the place with company pictures, I just don't happen to see a lot of us in it. What do you think we could do differently?
So there's two things. The first I think about is succession planning and how organizations typically look at backfilling executives and making sure that there's not a gap, right? You got a bench, who's on your leadership team that's up and coming, right? Your CFO is about to retire. You probably got somebody on the bench that you're making sure is ready to step into that. You're getting that person ready to do that, right? It's happening at all times. The CEO exits, you got somebody that comes in, they're the successor. Well, they got cultivated and coached, right? They got really coached up to be ready to take on that. We should be doing that across every level and every tier. And by no means am I saying that it should be weighted towards people of color or in, a group that may be underrepresented. But the focus on cultivating talent to be ready for the opportunity, I think, is incredibly important. Now, that is you and I doing stuff on our own with people that we don't necessarily have a tie to for any other reason than we want to make sure that they're ready to rock when the opportunity shows up. But it's really tough to go and be an individual contributor and then be ready to be a manager if you haven't been coached on how to do that, right? So I think building a bench really, really matters and getting people coached up to be ready for the moment. I also think that if you look at where most organizations probably go and recruit and go and find talent, They're not going to HBCUs for the talent that they're going to go and look for. They're not typically looking in those places where they're going to find very, very capable, very, very talented kids of color that are like, oh, shoot, I didn't know freight brokerage was a thing, right? I didn't know freight brokerage even existed. Honestly, if Adrian Dawes didn't work at Coyote, who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, because of him being a buddy of mine, I sold Cutco with, like, I didn't know what brokerage was, right?
Yeah.
And so there's places to go to find really, really incredible talent that will come in and bring a different approach to the business itself in a positive way. And we just might not be going there today, right? Like, there's just, I don't know how many times we see one of the top 20 brokerages go to Grambling. I don't know how much time they're spending at Hampton. And I don't think they're spending time there. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
I remember we were early on at Coyote, out at the Marianne. We were able to go to some HBCUs. We had an objective to bring in a lot more folks of color into the organization. So shout out to them and that movement, that era. But I think you're right. In general, I don't think those are like typically targeted universities from a recruiting perspective. And I also truly believe that you're right too, that logistics has to be the largest, most hidden industry in this country.
It's crazy.
You cannot get on a major interstate today and not see a truck every 2 to 3 minutes. But a huge part of the industry is the brokerages, the technology providers, the systems providers, all of the ancillary services around the truck. And I think that when people think about the freight industry, they think about trucking. And I don't think in general it's considered like an overly attractive industry to join if you don't want to truly join unless you're thinking about driving a truck. So I think that the industry can market itself better also and let everybody know all the varying opportunities that exist. Because to your point, for a very, very long time, it was like recruiting was like kind of who you knew. You know, I remember like early on, like that was kind of the recruiting model. Like it was, we went to college together. And if you go look at the predominantly white organizations, the PWIs, they have a very, very small percentage of Black people that go to those colleges. So if you're not,
that was me at Illinois Wesleyan.
Yeah. If you're not friends with someone that got a job at a brokerage or at a trucking company, like you just wouldn't know that these opportunities exist. So I do feel like there's an opportunity for the industry to market itself better. You don't see commercials about freight. I think Old Dominion has a commercial that comes on during college football season.
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
Game day.
UPS spends a decent amount of money in advertising. Like you just don't see the industry on your TV or in places where a lot of people of color are. And I read this stat the other day. It was like it was a map of the country, and it was counties with greater than 25% Black population. And of course, it was everything from like Houston over to DC, the entire like Bible Belt for the most part, remove a few counties, but the majority of the South is where most of the Black people live. And you know what also is? A lot of freights in the South too. So you have a lot of brokerages in the South. So we know that there's people there. We know there's really intelligent people that are college educated, that are gritty, that are smart. They definitely have to be resilient. So we do think there's an opportunity for more people that look like us join the space. We have to let them know that we want them in our space too, though, right? So I think there's some push and pull needed on both sides.
As you get ready to wrap up here, you are a father to 2 young, beautiful Black boys living in Southern California. You know what I'm saying? A little bit different in Alabama, right? Growing up, doing some really cool things, getting to see their dad be an executive in the space and a great leader and a great example of, you know, if they want to get into the space or do something similar, somebody to aspire towards. Are there things that you focus on to make sure that you're a good example for them? And as a result, you end up being a good example for a lot of other people, but anything that you focus on as a dad?
One of the biggest, most impactful things for me was working with Alex Brown back when we were at Coyote.
Alex Brown has the biggest hands of anybody's hands I've ever shaken in my life. That man shook my hand and I was like, this is crazy.
Played in the Super Bowl, you know, different kind of guy. Yeah, different kind of human. And I'd asked him one time, why would you even do this? Like, star athlete, done all the things, you got all the awards you could possibly have. And I remember him just saying that he wanted his children to see him getting up every day going to work. Like he thought that was so important for his kids to see, like, no, it doesn't matter how successful dad was at whatever that career was, is that I need to show you that every single day to be successful, we got to get up and do hard things because life is hard. It has its ups, it has its downs. And the most successful people are the most resilient and consistent people that you'll ever meet. They're disciplined. And I never forgot that conversation with AB. And I've honestly tried to live my life the same way. I've been fortunate to have some good success, but I don't feel like I'm anywhere near where God has me scheduled to be. I got a long way to go to get there. And I never want my kids to get comfortable and think that we've got it made. We've got so much work in front of us. We got so much good work in front of us. So I just try to teach them to get up every day and give their best effort, be the best version of them every day. They see dad in and out of airports, trying to make it to practices on time, trying to do all the right things, and ultimately just be a great father as much as I can. And I feel like if I instill the right values in my children, that they'll be really great citizens and really great people one day. And that's just my goal, man. And the funny thing about being a dad is you can have the worst day, worst week possible, and they don't care. They're just like, Dad, you're crushing it in life. I'm like, am I? Like, dude, you're the best dad. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys.
I love that, man. I don't have kids, but I think to myself oftentimes the amount of things my mom and dad had to sacrifice for me to be in this position. And it just, man, does it keep me motivated because I love them so much, man. They work their tails off, right? And at some point, you know, I might have a couple kids, right? And I want to make sure that I can be the example that I saw from my parents. Like you said, man, both my mom and pops, they get up every day. My dad was a paramedic, working 24-hour shifts, overtime, but he was at everything. And my mom was at everything, right? I cannot remember a game ever where I looked up in the stands and one of my parents wasn't there, right? If my dad had a 48 or a 24-hour shift, right? My mom is there for some reason. My mom couldn't be there. My dad was there. He's moving shifts around. He would drive the ambulance. I played football in high school in Merrill's Park. My dad was a paramedic in Schiller Park, so they're super close. My pops would roll the ambulance up if he ever had a shift and park it outside the stadium so he could watch the game. That way, if they got a call, he could hop in there and go. But you understand the level of dedication that it takes to be willing to do that between the two of them to say, hey, yo, the game's at 5:30. It's an hour away. So one of us needs to either be off or leave. And bro, I can't ask for anything else, right? I got to go in. I got no choice, right?
Yeah.
That's the example that I was given between two people willing to figure out whatever it takes to be there for me as a young gun.
Right.
Yeah, man. I'm going to go figure that out, right? It's the coolest thing in the world.
Well, it's about that time for you too, man. We're getting up there, but whenever you decide that you're ready, you're gonna be a great pops, man. You got all the right behaviors, man, and yeah, you're gonna be a phenomenal dad. But this was fun, man. I appreciate giving us this platform to kind of talk about our experiences. There are so many remarkable people out there that need to hear these stories, and there are just incredible people across all cultures. And even though this is a Black History, month, conversation, we're still not there. We're not where we are today without the help and support of a ton of people that don't look anything like us. And I think that's what makes this country beautiful. Even though we're going through some tough times at the moment right now, there are incredible people out here that work together every single day to accomplish great things. So what we want to do is just make sure that for those voices out there that don't get the audience that we have at times, they get a chance to be heard too. They need opportunities also.
I agree, man. It's one of my favorite parts about putting ourselves out there because there's a platform and you should use it for good and to be a strong example of what's possible. So I appreciate you, man. This is another really, really fun episode and we'll catch you on the next time. The next time on the Journey Podcast.
Absolutely. See you, man.
See you, dude.